Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Episode. Targan, you know what time it is? Somehow the entirety of 2025 is gone, December is over, so it's time to do the monthly retro news roundup. And let me tell you, it's been an absolutely epic month for retro releases, and we're going to be having a lot of fun with it. But definitely the Christmas trees are all dried up at this point in time. We're getting real close to New Year's Eve. And I apologize, I still have a little bit of a cold. This thing absolutely just holds on worse than any other cold I've had, even if I haven't felt bad the entire time. So if I sound a little bit off today, I'm definitely trying to get this done in between coughing. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But right off the top, we got the Star Fox 64 recap right around Christmas time, actually on Christmas Eve, and I actually worked with the developer, Sonic Dreamcaster, to make sure that video was ready. I don't want you to think I worked on the recap whatsoever, totally not my work, but it's been absolutely amazing to get a new version of Star Fox 64, because right around last Christmas in 2024, we got the actual Starship PC port. But PC ports and recaps are kind of two different ways to achieve a very similar result. But honestly, in my testing, and the easy thing is, because the same developer made both, I don't have to worry about any hurt feelings, I would say the recap definitely is hitting a little bit better when it actually comes to Star Fox 64 on PC. You're going to get a higher frame rate in the lava and other effects going for 60 frames per second from 30 on the PC port, and there's also some mods that already work, like the Japanese voice languages in the North American version of the game, and trust me, there's going to be a lot more mods in the future. But I would say the overall visual implementation here in the recomp with all of the different VI pipeline stuff from N64 looks absolutely stunning, and getting that film grain in as well, that kind of noise that moves around, especially in the black areas on Star Fox 64, makes it look that much closer to the actual original N64 game. And I think you're going to be seeing a lot more recomps and PC ports in 2026, because obviously I'm going to talk about each and every one of them, and you're definitely seeing a lot more come out a lot quicker. So I think next year is going to be an absolutely massive year for these sort of things. But let's move into the first soundtrack sample so you can hear how good the audio quality is in the recomp, because it is technically better than the PC port. And I'll be right back with a lot more news.
こちらの映像データをそっちに転送する。暗いな。ミサイルを撃って周りを照らせるか。すでに汚染が始まっているようだ。ひどいな。
Now, the second big chunk of news from December is the fact that we got this entire archive of the Sega Channel dumps. We're talking about a bunch of games that never came out, a bunch of prototypes, and a bunch of games that have a lot of different changes compared to the retail version of the game. When I talked about the actual Sega Channel dumps in that video, I said I didn't know anyone who had one back in the day. I certainly didn't have one, so for me, a lot of this stuff was brand new in 2025, but I was actually surprised by just how many people in the comments either had Sega Channel back in the day or had a friend that they hang out with who actually had it. So again, leave me that comment down below and you tell me, Sega Channel, was it something you experienced or not? And just about 2 hours ago, there was a Mr. Core release where you can kind of play around with these ROMs like you actually have a Sega Channel device hooked up to a Genesis. So I'll definitely be covering that soon, but too early in my day to actually get that whole video out. But honestly, there's just been a ton of fun going through these archives, and do be aware, it isn't just game ROMs. There's a ton of scans of documents on the website, kind of going through the history of the Sega Channel. And I would say, as far as overall preservation projects are concerned for 2025, this one definitely is one of the biggest out there. Not only in the amount of content you're going to be able to go through, but also in the amount of work that would have had to have taken place to get this thing completely packaged up. And that, again, because I do talk about preservation and the sharing of files and making sure everyone can enjoy these games, is a huge thing for me, because I always want to celebrate all of these different preservation works. For every single retail game that released that you played, there's probably a prototype out there that you've never seen before, and so many times they never leave collectors' hands. They end up getting hoarded away, where only one person in the world can actually play them and experience them. And you know full well, anytime I find an arcade game that nobody can play, I make sure that I work with a team of people to get it out to you so you can enjoy it. So I absolutely love that other groups out there are doing these things, and trust me, Sega Channel definitely is a kind of a product that could have been lost to time if it wasn't for these preservation projects. Because obviously trying to get consoles online back in the early 90s to mid 90s was all the rage, But again, Sega Channel wasn't exactly a huge success, and because of the way the technology worked, a lot of this stuff could have been lost to time. But it seems like Sega kept good archives and they were able to be found and shared by everyone, so that is 10 out of 10 fun. Now moving back over to the Recomp category, the actual Dinosaur Planet Recomp got a big update in December as well, bringing in a lot of improvements. When you actually use the mod patches for this, you can quote unquote play the game from start to finish without any freezing or issues. Now don't forget that this thing is not a finished product, it is a prototype of what would become Star Fox Adventure on the GameCube, but this was always meant to not involve Fox McCloud. It was its own game, developed by Rare on the N64 that they just basically moved over to GameCube and shared the license with Nintendo on Star Fox. And this Recomp was definitely doing a good job, but now with all of the improvements, it's just that much better. And again, just like the Sega Channel thing, this is video game preservation, giving you a ton of fun. And do be aware that in the description below, all of the links to these Recomp projects and everything else will be available as well, so you can definitely check them out. But you leave me a comment down below and you tell me what's your favorite retro gaming moment of the month of December so far. Let's do a Dinosaur Planet actual music sample here, 45 seconds, and I'll be right back with a lot more news to share. It sounds absolutely incredible, and it is great that we can actually experience that even better now on the Recomp. But moving over to the actual Christmas dump, the 12 Days of Sonic, we got 12 different Sonic the Hedgehog prototypes released by the Hidden Palace, including the Shadow the Hedgehog E3 demo, something that people I believe have been looking for a very long time, and they just were able to find it and release it for everyone. And again, I understand Shadow the Hedgehog isn't the best game, even though when I said in the initial video that I thought as much, some people were upset. Trust me, I don't say games are bad because I think it's funny. I want every single Sonic game out there to be a fun time, but I would just say Shadow the Hedgehog didn't really succeed for what fans wanted back in the day. But if you are one of the people that like it, that's totally cool with me. If you're happy, I'm happy. I'm never here to convince you a game is bad. I just say if I don't like it or I don't enjoy the thing. But as far as preservation is concerned, getting all of these different prototypes, including Sonic Schoolhouse, an edutainment title that was actually showcased at E3 as well, is a really fun way to end December, because there's so many fun Sonic games out there and so many prototypes we can check out. And I know that coveted Sonic, the original game, the Tokyo Game Show prototype, is still out there somewhere. Hopefully one day that gets found as well. But this is definitely something, again, being able to experience these games that would only be available on the E3 show floor back in the day, being able to run them in Dolphin and do whatever you want with them is a ton of fun. You can look for differences and you can basically know that another piece of Sonic media has been preserved for all time. Because think of how many different Sonic games have been made over the last like 3.5 decades, and then think about how many of those games have prototypes that are still out there waiting to be found. And just think that the person that found them, or the group that found them in this instance, was able to share everything with everyone, so every Sonic fan and Sega fan can get a chance to take a look at it. That's not always how these things happen, so it's definitely awesome. And even if Shadow the Hedgehog still, again, is not anywhere near my favorite Sonic game of all time, I still had a lot of fun going through the prototype and checking things out to see exactly how these games are developed. Because that really is the fun thing. A lot of times you get to look behind the curtain and find out where things happen and where things changed. And moving over to another recomp, Dr. Mario 64 basically had a shadow release right in the middle of December. I got a message on Discord by somebody saying, hey, did you see this was out? And I had no idea it was even in active development. And again, the recomp and PC port scene for Nintendo 64 and other consoles is definitely just going to start heating up even more next year. We've seen stuff for the PlayStation 3, we've seen stuff for the Xbox 360, the GameCube, and 64, and trust me, it's going to get even better than we already have. And that definitely is awesome, because even though emulation is so incredible, being able to actually play these games as recomps or PC ports is all the much better if you just want to kind of sit down and play them, especially with a lot of the graphical enhancements. Let's move over to our next soundtrack sample so you can hear just how good Dr. Mario 64 sounds as a recomp, but come back because I got even more news for you. Super charming soundtracks. So leave me a comment down below and you tell me what your favorite PC port or recap from N64 was this year. But moving over to Capcom and Resident Evil, the basically retail final version of Resident Evil on the Game Boy Color was found and released as well, because there had been other prototypes out there in the world, but this one was definitely something that was basically almost ready to ship onto a cartridge and go for sale on store shelves. I would say it feels like 95% complete. There can be a little bit of jankiness here and there, but I am so impressed just how close this game gets to having the look and feel of the actual PlayStation 1 release of something like Resident Evil. Sure, the graphics are definitely a downgrade, but honestly, the perspective here on this hallway, the colors and everything else, you know exactly where you are in the world of Resident Evil and the Spencer Mansion, and again, this is something that wasn't out there before it was dumped and released. And because Resident Evil is such an absolutely massive franchise, getting more prototypes and betas from it, absolutely outstanding. And I say it in basically every video, but if the Hookman version of Resident Evil 4 ever leaks out there, I would love to experience that one. That would be my #1 choice. And my second choice would be Resident Evil 0 on the N64. Because footage exists, we know they were in development, but I've never heard any rumors or hints that they could be in private collectors' hands, but honestly, you never really know. But getting this game, which is a straight up 10 out of 10, I have played it from start to finish and had a ton of fun, and it's also going to be our next soundtrack soon because I love how they kind of converted the Resident Evil music over to Game Boy Color. So go ahead and listen, but come back for my favorite bit of news this month. So finally, for the first time ever, and I get that you could play this game in MAME for the longest time, but the Outfoxy's got a home port. For as long as I've had a channel, this is a game when I feature it, I say it is one of the best hidden gem arcade games ever made, and it's one game that basically no one ever knew existed and never played. This is basically the precursor to something like Super Smash Bros. On the N64. It is such a fun, incredible game, and trust me, if you actually want an original PCB for this thing, you gotta bring your wallet, because we're talking about a rent or mortgage payment worth of money, and I would say it's definitely worth it even if I don't have one. But now the fact that you can hop onto the Nintendo Switch 2 online shop or basically any other platform and grab this thing for $15, straight up amazing. And if you've never played the Outfoxys before and you still have family over for the holidays or plan on doing anything New Year's Eve with friends, load this game up. Trust me, it is absolute chaos in the best way possible. You're going to be yelling at each other, you're going to be laughing, and you're going to have a ton of fun. And I love the Arcade Archives basically keeps bringing these games home to us, and honestly, I'm surprised it took this long to get an Outfoxy's home port, because this game has been out for over 3 decades and still basically no one knows it exists. I'm not sure if this home port is going to convince more people to play it or if it'll get any more popular out there, but at least now the ease of use is going to be that simple for everyone that doesn't actually decide to emulate. You can just pop onto the store and start having fun with this one. The only thing I wish it had compared to everything else out there would be some online netcodes you can actually get some matches in with friends. I totally understand why that isn't the case. It's going to be a local only experience, but that would be the one thing I wish I could add to it if I could snap my fingers and just make magic happen. But take it from me, if you saw this release and you haven't played it yet, if you like fighting games, if you like games like Smash Brothers, there is a metric crap ton of love here on the Outfoxys. It is still one of my favorite fighting games of all time. I definitely think it's something you're going to enjoy too, and now for the first time ever, got a home port. Now moving back to Sonic the Hedgehog, but not the actual E3 dump of Shadow, this is Sonic Robo Blast 32X, and I will say this is the most impressive piece of Sonic fan game I've ever seen across any platform. The fact that this is working in the Doom engine and runs on 32X hardware, the Mr. FPGA core or software emulation, is nothing short of magic. Had this thing actually released back in the day when people had 32Xs and they were on store shelves, I think it would have sold to absolutely everyone, and people would have been reviewing this game as a straight up 10 out of 10. Because the fact that this is in the Doom engine in and of itself is just such a technical showcase. And I totally get there's easier ways to make games in 3D in 2025, but there's just something about using this old technology, not only the Doom engine, but the 32X hardware to make a game that would have been a hit back in the 90s. I just love to see stuff like this. and I really hope that this game gets finished because as of the new update in December, the second world has been brought in and is even bigger, more expansive, and more fun to play than the original world in my opinion. So the link in the description is down below to be able to play this one because trust me, it is straight up amazing what fans can do with the 32X and Sonic. It's also going to be our next soundtrack sample, 45 seconds, but come back because it was a busy news month and I still have more to share. Now, one of my favorite moments of December as far as retro gaming was concerned is the fact that the Splatter World ROM, the basically complete prototype game from Namco in the Splatterhouse franchise that never saw release, now has a 100% complete English translation, because when this ROM was actually released around Halloween, no one had played the game before. It was always rumored to exist, but no one ever checked it out. But of course, because it never actually saw release, never came west, everything was in Japanese, so it was really fun to talk about as far as a prototype preservation was concerned. It was a lot of fun to take a look at an 8-bit RPG in the Splatterhouse world, but of course you really couldn't understand the story or make it very far in the game in case you didn't actually read Japanese. Now that is not the fact whatsoever. This thing has been 100% converted over to English. The translation is absolutely amazing, and it means that this game is not only preserved for all time, but that anyone who reads English can understand it and play it. And I'm sure in the future you're probably going to see more translations for this one into Spanish and other languages, because I understand my audience is English language speaking, but there's other people out there, French, Spanish, that are going to want a translation of this as well. And the fun thing about Splatterworld is the story is really fun, so if you haven't checked this one out, again, the link's in the description below, and it's absolutely worth your time, especially now that you're going to be able to understand exactly what the hell you're doing in the thing. Now, staying in an 8-bit world but moving over to a different platform, Microblado's Ninja Gaiden Shadow DX full recolorization project came out in December. I just recently did a video on this and I said the colorways on selection here out of the different visuals absolutely are stunning. It's one of those things, black and white or green and white Game Boy games were definitely a fun vibe back in the day, but sometimes I feel like the color actually makes the games a little bit more playable and a little bit easier to identify exactly what's going on when you're trying to play them. So this is absolutely something. If you haven't played this one yet, you're 100% missing out. It's got that fun Ninja Gaiden difficulty, it's got an amazing soundtrack, and it also has full color now where there never was color before. And just take a look at that cityscape, the blues, the yellows, those blinking lights that are just basically 1 pixel, even that kind of orange yellow moon in the background. These are all choices that people need to make when they're doing these colorization projects. If you select the right colors, absolutely stunning. If you don't, not as impressive. Even the projectiles here are going to be way easier to read because they are purple against a blue background, so really everything in the game is going to be easily identifiable. And it was just fun to play through Ninja Gaiden Shadow DX during Christmas because I hadn't played this game in a while and I absolutely fell in love with it again. I think it's probably been 15 or 20 years since I checked this one out, and that's why projects like this are so important. Not only do they make things more fun, but even Video Game Esoteric, who basically plays almost everything, goes back in and rediscovers a game that I honestly enjoyed but hadn't thought about in forever. So if you haven't played this one yet, the year is still here, but trust me, it works in January 2026 as well. But if you did play this one, leave me a comment down below and you tell me what you thought of it, because I've been hearing nothing but good feedback, but I always love to hear what your guys' opinion is when it comes to these sort of projects and what Game Boy game you'd love to see get colorized next. And honestly, December's just been an amazing month. From the Star Fox 64 recomp to everything else, we've been absolutely treated with Christmas gift after Christmas gift when it comes to retro gaming. And 2025 in general has been a massive year. I almost did a 2025 year in review as far as retro is concerned, but then I realized it would have to be like a 5-hour long video because it's been an absolute spicy year when it comes to fun, and I really hope 2026 is as good, if not better. But leave me a comment down below and you tell me what's your favorite retro gaming moment of 2025. I would be curious. But we're done. Have a good new year when it happens, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.